Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock. It's Tuesday. It's been a crazy week. Vegan YouTube is imploding, crumbling before our very eyes. One after another of these long-term vegans, um, getting the gall, getting the courage to admit that what they were doing just wasn't working. We're seeing a huge transition in how people are viewing plant foods and animal foods. We've got these carnivore heretics kind of at the forefront of exposing just how far removed we've been from understanding how to feed ourselves, how to nourish ourselves, and how to nourish our children. So, I don't exactly advocate a carnivore diet for everybody. I don't think anybody advocates a carnivore diet for everybody. But what's so interesting is we are seeing um, these carnivorous nutcases live and thrive off of an exclusively meat diet. So, how's my audio, everybody? Is my audio good? I'm getting some weird little loopbacks through my microphone here. Oh, you know what? That might just be if you could turn your volume down, or if you have some headphones that you could maybe use, Katia.
Have I got some headphones? No, but
Okay,
I'll.
if you just turn down the volume a little bit on the speakers, I'm hearing my echo. All right. So,
Okay.
anyways, guys, I'm excited to talk to Katia today. She's a 20-year ex-vegan pioneer. You probably noticed the shocking photo, the cover image of this video of a kid looking pretty emaciated. We're gonna get into not only her journey as a 20-year vegan, a pioneer in the raw foods movement, a pioneer in this in the whole modern vegan movement that we see today. We're going to talk about what she's seen in other people, in other families, and other children. So I'm not sure how long this is going to go, but me and Katia have a lot of interesting things that we can talk about. So she might have to be a repeat guest if she doesn't offend you all too much with her honesty. And so yeah, trigger warning, everybody. We're going to be talking about the truth of what a vegan diet really does to developing children, what a vegan diet really does to us as we age, and as we try to deal with all the environmental factors that we have to deal with today in this modern technocratic age in order to be healthy. So, Katya, thank you so much for joining. Super excited to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. How's the sound there? Is that a little better?
Oh,
Is that,
it's
yes?
perfect. It's absolutely
Okay,
perfect.
fantastic. Thank you so much. I guess I'll start with a little bit of my background. I mean, obviously, for those who don't know me, I'm into my 63rd year. So my path has always been in rejuvenation and seeking out on a quest to find the best way of attaining health. So, I started when I was about 13, 14, connecting with these books of Gail Elwood Houses and Paver O'Reilly. Probably haven't heard of these people, but these were pioneers in Europe at that time of the health food movement. And then Victoris Kovinskas and Anne Wigmore and all the rest. But really, I really want to heal acne. So I started to bring in some of these recommendations, and then my path kind of went along. And when I was about 17, I used to take vacations. We'd had 4-week annual holidays. I'd go to health farms, which is what they were called in those days in the mid-70s. And they were run by the Seventh-day Adventists, by the way. That was all that was available. And there was another one that was an Indian kind of guru woman. But so that was kind of my journey, and then into, the beauty and healing and all kinds of things. And I studied classical homeopathy and became a colonic therapist, qualified in digestive just qualifications, and ran my own schools with vibration letters and so forth. So I had that path. And then, of course, the raw food thing hit the mainstream probably in the mid-90s, and in Australia, probably late 90s. And I started to experiment with a lot of that, and then did a stint of working at Hippocrates as a lecturer there in colonic irrigation therapist. So I would see some pretty jaw-dropping transformations. And so I knew the power of fruits and vegetables, raw fruits and vegetables, to heal and transform people. And most of the people who would arrive would be corporate, burnt out, worn out people, and 7 days later on juicing and watermelon fasting and raw foods, they'd really be different people. So then that inspired me
What year was
to
this that you
open the
got into
first
this? That
restaurant.
you first started getting into this raw food part of it?
Sorry, say that again.
What year was it that you first started getting into this? You mentioned.
Probably 1998,
Yeah.
90, yeah. And then because I experimented with myself for a little while, and then because I was aware of Shazzy. She was the one that sort
Yeah, I
of
remember
brought
her,
it
the
to the
chocolate lady.
mainstream. Yeah, that's right. And she had a blog. That's how she actually got into notoriety about the whole thing and sort of blossomed out. But I decided then to open a cafe, and so it turned out to be the first one in Australia. But of course, I was so always ahead of my time. People just thought I was absolutely nuts, and I'd be broke within, it'd be like a few months, if that. Well, it ended up being a university degree in making gourmet raw food to the public, I say. It took about a year, and then I had to close the doors because really it was, yeah, people just weren't. It hadn't even come into people's consciousness, let alone the mainstream as it is now.
What kind of
So
foods
then
were
I
you
went
eating, and
on
what kind of
to,
foods? What kind of foods were you serving? What kind of foods were you eating
well,
in
I did a lot of the gourmet
1998?
stuff.
Uh huh.
Yeah, it was kind of gourmet, and it was in a way to tantalize people's taste buds to get them to. I kind of replicated a lot of the foods that we all love as the standard sort of diet foods, and that was how you get people in. And
So
of
you
course,
would
in
be
the
making like,
States,
would you be making like burger patties out of sprouted nuts and stuff like that?
yeah,
That's the kind of stuff you're
yeah,
talking about.
absolutely. And of course,
Okay.
the desserts were the big draw card
That's
because,
yeah, that's what people want. They want the raw vegan
yeah,
desserts. They want
yeah,
the coconut mango cream pies with a nut crust
yeah,
and
yeah,
the people
chocolate
would put
mousse,
agave nectar in it.
yeah,
Remember, people were using
yeah.
lots of agave, and they're like, "This is raw. The agave
Yeah,
is raw."
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it
All
was
the
like a lot of
dehydrated
sugar
stuff.
bombs, like fat and sugar bombs. It's funny when you look at it on paper, it's not so bad, right? You're getting these nuts. They're fatty acids in the nuts. You got the amino acids in there. Um, Somehow it doesn't seem to work out long term though. That high consumption of fiber, nuts and seeds, and whole plant based
No,
foods, does it?
no. So then I went on to teach programs. In fact, I taught a lot of people who then went on to open raw food businesses, and yeah, and ran retreats. So I would witness some quite incredible transformations with people, as I said, and so I also had one of the biggest forums in Australia at that time, along with
Yeah.
a couple called Raw Pleasure. We were
Hmm.
both kind of, bringing in things like, spirulina, not spirulina, AFA, goji berries, raw cacao, and poured that in. These were all so new and hadn't really, again, a lot of people never heard of them. So anyway, that's how that kind of started. And it wasn't long, probably the first year, into the second year, once I had this business going, that I had a partner at the time, and he started to notice sort of me getting paler, and I started to feel heavy in my legs just to start to
Yeah.
walk down to get the mail. So there was obviously, he picked anemia started to come up, right?
And you didn't
As it
notice
turned
this. He was kind of
well,
showing this to you.
I did initially, but then it got to the point where even I was getting short of breath, and I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I just looked a bit ghost-like, and it was not good. So when I went and had some tests done, I was so chronically anemic. It was down to something like 5,
Hmm.
which is almost like. So he said to me, "Well, what's your diet like?" When I told him, he would like horrified, and I said, "You have to have injections now." Right, severely. So
So
I
were you
had to have
taking vitamin
injections.
B12 and stuff like that? Were people doing
I
that back then?
was. Well, of course, in those days, believing all this information that AFA was a miracle food. You know what AFA is, don't you? That like E3 Live, but
Yeah.
Afafloss or whatever, the one word from Lake Klamath algae.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
the
that was
algae, the super algae, the blue
yeah,
green algae, yeah. And
absolutely
people used to
spirulina.
say that people were saying in the mid 2000s that this is an amazing source of B12 and you're also getting omega 369 fatty acids. There were a lot of claims being made around this algae. Um, what does it taste like?
Absolute crap. It really didn't. And the funny thing, and I've got a lot to say about that too, because I really feel that damages your liver over time too. But it's a
Mm,
massive stimulant. You get this high and then you come down. And anyway, and it's obviously really being pushed now to a lot of people. You need spirulina, that'll fix you up.
Hmm.
Um, the old pond algae. But anyway, so yeah, and then of course I just went back to being vegan. I mean, he said to me, "You have to." This is the doctor said, "You've got to start eating some meat, or else, Of course, I was so stubborn, and I had a business going, and so off I went and kept going on,
How did you
and then.
justify that? Did you just say, "Oh well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm at the cutting edge," or how did you?
Well, no, no, again, because, I'd hear and read that there were foods that I could eat that had more proteins in them, supposedly,
Yeah,
plant
yeah.
proteins, that were going to rectify the problem. And so that's what I did. And, kind of went along. And then it wasn't long before a year passed and I'd get this insatiable desire for eggs.
Ooh.
And
Now the doctor
I
we watched
just,
yesterday, Dr. Clapper, would say that that's because eggs and animal products are just like heroin. So I guess what you were experiencing from modern vegan YouTube perspective, and a doctor, right? This guy calls himself a doctor, the good doctor, Dr. Clapper, aka Dr. the Clap. He said that that's just an addiction, and it's kind of like maybe you could get a Beyond Burger, and that could be kind of like methadone for you to transition out of that addiction.
Oh my goodness, I
That
haven't heard
that
that. But you've got to remember too that a lot of the schools, and even now, naturopathic schools, they are pushing plant-based diets. You learn that. That
yeah.
is the best, type of diet to advice to give and suggest to your clients,
But which
patients.
version of
And
plant-based diets are going to
yeah,
give? I mean, is it a raw food, whole food plant-based diet? Or, I mean, they don't seem to give much guidelines. They just say primarily plant-based. As long as you're not eating those nasty animal products, you're going to be fine.
absolutely. Toxic, all that. Yeah, so that's kind of, and that went on basically every year. I would have eggs, and that would keep me going. I'd probably do it over about 4 or 5 days, just really binge on eggs, and then that's it. I'd had enough, but I'd go back, and I think that was my saving grace, really, for all that 20 years,
Yeah.
really, which is pretty in there. Now, there was 3 years of that from 2012 that I did the fruitarian thing. Now, that really was that was the straw that broke the camel's back in some ways because this is where I lost teeth and I got fibromyalgia, digestive problem. Being a digestive expert, the same thing. I was aware of what was going on with my own digestion, but again, the ideology had me absolutely bound and
Yeah.
handcuffed because and so that's how I kind of got away with it. The other thing, I've never been a person who's eaten a lot of grain. In fact, I didn't eat grains. I've never been attracted to them. Plus, I learned, obviously, in studying anatomy, physiology, classical homeopathy, if you chew any grain, whether it be rice, and spit it out on a little microscopic little piece of glass and put it under a microscope, leave it out, what's going to happen? Mold's going to grow. So sugar, it actually turns to sugar. And this is what people don't understand. All grains, they turn to sugar in the gut. So I just tended to stay away from all that. So that's kind of what happened, and I limped along, and then things really got out of control. In the end of 2017, I had three teeth break, and
Wow.
just from eating nuts, right, just a soft nut, and I actually lost two upper molars unnecessarily, which I'm really pissed about. But I
Hmm.
got over that. But uh,
I'm glad you got over that. You got over your attachment to
oh
molars
man,
now. Now
I
that's one of
had
the
some.
steps of becoming a true vegan is you lose all attachment to your teeth. You lose all attachment to your mental health, your testosterone
Oh
levels.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
shout
yeah,
out to
yeah.
Klaus from Plant Based News. He's in the chat over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Klaus and Dr. Clapper. Thanks for the hilarity you guys have been providing us, and yeah, you guys keep on doing what you're doing. Protect that intellectual territory, and don't ever admit to yourself the damage that you're doing. So shout
And
out to
what I just
Klaus in the
wanted to,
chat.
I wanted to get across is that for a lot of these people who idolize these leaders, I want you to know that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than
Mm.
people are revealing,
Right.
especially
So,
if
so
they've
you
got
knew a lot of these
livelihoods.
leaders in the early days, right? Like, I mean, you were
Oh
around in the
gosh,
times
it's
of the
happening.
early days of Sir David Wolf.
Yes,
And
yes, yes,
His
yes.
Holiness the
Well,
Dalai Gregor was not even on the scene yet in those days. Like Gregor wasn't around when I was first interested in a vegan diet. This was a time when the ideology wasn't so strongly attached.
well, this is true, and yeah, no, look, everything has changed in the last few years because since it's been going mainstream, but we've got a generation of kids coming through, which is what we're going to get to, the whole crux of this, who with the explosion of social media too, we've got a whole generation of kids, and I'm not saying this is everything, but it's a general thing because you've got to remember too, we didn't have our peer groups that were all going vegan, right?
Yeah.
And encouraging you and yourself and your friends and to go vegan as well. So you've got all these people on Instagram, whatever, who are idols for for most people today, and they keep you hooked in a way. Do you know what I mean? They're reinforcing that you're a good citizen if you do this. And obviously most of us know now about the hook with the factory farming. That's the hook, we know, right? Because everyone hates that. But that's what they're using, and that's what they've absolutely pushed with documentaries and everything, right?
Yep.
So if you've got all your peer group, plus you've got it on mainstream, plus when you go to the supermarket, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It has more of a anchor in your being. Do you know what I mean? In your belief system. So
You're getting constant
whereas
reinforcement from several different places, right? You got
yeah,
Beyonce and Jay-Z
exactly,
telling you
exactly.
to
This
give your
wasn't
daughters.
happening for us,
Right.
right?
Beyonce and Jay-Z are giving free concert tickets. You've got Klaus from Plant-Based News telling us all
That's
about the
right.
wonders of
That's
Dr.
right.
Gregor, the wonders of
Right.
whole food plant-based, and the dangers of ever eating meat, and how if you leave veganism, you were never really vegan. So we've
That's
got a
right. So we've gone
20-year.
into the next phases of this agenda because and see, my mission now, if you had have said to me, Tristan, Katya, you will, this time last year, if you had have said to me, Katya, at the end of 2018, you will no longer be vegan, let alone raw vegan, right? I would have laughed at you and said, no way. And as a consequence of that, your life will take a direction where you will be helping people, younger people, to get out of the prison that they're in. this incredible ideology that's absolutely making their health crumble like we've never seen. So this is another argument I brought up too in a couple of the forums where you got to remember when I was growing up, there was no vegan kids around. We didn't see all this en masse unhealthy kids. And I remember that video you put up a couple of days ago with that doctor, and I responded to that in another group about the millennials with the eating disorders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you failed to say that the vegan agenda is also an eating disorder.
Yeah.
And also, when I was growing up, the kids that were really sickly looking were from poor families who could only give them like the processed cereals, and that really started to come in the 60s, right?
Yep.
Along with the low fat thing that started, right? The skim milk and everything. So it's all been in increments.
Grain based, and it's a grain based diet, and then they also transitioned the cattle and the animal feed over to grain based, right?
Yeah.
So this
they
is why
were
I'm
the
constantly
only
saying
kids that you'd see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everyone else was robust looking, and the kids were, they had good color and they had good bone structure, and everyone looked good, right? Because we're all eating meat every day.
Well, they also played outside too. They weren't addicted to their technological devices. They weren't right. There are other aspects as well, but it's all part of the social engineering. This is all part of the the cultural programming of move into the smart cities.
It's definitely
We'll feed you Soylent slop, and you can pay us your Bitcoin for the Soylent slop that will be dispensed from an ATM machine in your central hub of Google Smart City. And when you look at actually the money behind it, the people who created the factory farming system that the vegans are pushing against are the same people now who are telling you to go vegan. You have Tyson Foods, you have Beyond Meat. Tyson Foods is one of the biggest investors. You've got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation pushing these ideas and pushing plant-based ideology. These are the same people who created the factory farming system. The vegans don't want to understand this. They can't get it through their head that they are actually part of a Trojan horse to break our ability to actually feed ourselves, to live a rural lifestyle, and to engage in animal husbandry and feed ourselves protein and fat that are not highly processed, highly refined, and consolidated and patented. So yeah,
Totally,
I
totally
gotta
on
throw
point,
that in there because I
Tristan.
know Klaus from Plant
Thank
Based
God for
News is
people
in the.
like you.
I
But
know
would you
Klaus
tell
is in the.
me, would
Klaus,
you
we have
have
a laugh
thought
at you every
vegan?
once in a while. We have a good laugh. We make fun of the vegan ideology, but you know what, man? We have a reason, buddy. You're not listening to what we're really
Absolutely.
saying, and you're focusing on the wrong thing. So I'm sure when you make some attack piece about me in the future, you'll completely misinterpret what I'm saying over here. Um, but it is what it is, man. The ideology you guys are pushing is hurting people, and it's the this ideology and your whole movement is actually being funded by people like Prince Khalid. So Plant-Based News is still in the chat here. I put a link earlier, guys, for who actually runs and owns Plant-Based News. It's Prince Khalid. It's one of the most wealthy people on the planet. Somebody who's got 200 servants in his palatial estate. Somebody who had 200 cars when he was 19 years old. That's who's pushing this.
Yeah.
All right, so
Well, you
sorry.
know what
Let's
I
keep
just
going.
saw today?
Mhm.
You know, there was the vegan month, what's it called? Month of veganism, just in January, veganary or whatever. But Emirates just posted in their the Dubai newspaper. It's like you can go and look it on the internet. They served something like 20,000 vegan meals, right? And the whole article is about, educating more and more people about a vegan plant-based diet, and we're helping to turn the world vegan, and it's full on.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? You know?
I would have never thought that it would happen so fast, right? Like it was kind of obvious
Yeah,
back in 2012 that it was going in this
yeah,
direction, right?
yeah,
But I mean, it's was not obvious that it would be pushed so hard. Jay-Z and Beyonce will give you free tickets to our concert. You got like
yeah, yeah,
Lady Gaga doing mock human sacrifices and drinking human blood on stage, but and then
yeah.
and then pushing for a plant-based
Do you know what?
diet.
There's something happened this year. I don't know, Tristan, whether it's accelerating in, like we just mentioned when we talked before we came live, was that the veils are really being lifted, and I think a lot of people who've been doing this for a while, like I said, they're starting to hit walls, and a lot of I mean, I look back, when you're in 20 and 30, you've got so much more resilience, and you're in this honeymoon period with the veganism thing, and don't kind of grasp what's going to happen down the track. And I know a lot of people are falling apart before, earlier. I've written several books. I wrote one that two books on raw food lifestyle, and I actually said in the last one that it was predicted that Alzheimer's and dementia is going to be an epidemic in younger people.
Yeah.
And I wrote this in 2009. Now it's been predicted in the next 10 years. So this is the beginning of that 10 years starting to happen. And I can see it with conversations I'm having with vegan people. They cannot get a rational, logical, just conversation going. They waver off. There's a dissonance going on,
Yeah, they think
and
they
I
speak
don't know,
for
you've
animals.
noticed
They
this
actually think
before?
these are people who've never touched animals in their life. They live in cities, they live in London, and they say they speak for the animals. And then they say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
there are
yeah,
human
yeah. Well, I
animals and
had someone
non-human
say that to
animals.
me in Australia. I had a guy come up to me, and he knew me from, he knew my books and everything from Australia. And he said, Katya, why are you no longer vegan? He said, why don't you just, don't worry about your health. It's the animals here. Like, he literally was telling me that my health wasn't important, and my survival, and that to put an animal's life above my own. I just said, do you realize this is a real uh, red flag for an eating disorder? This is huge. Oh, no, 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 no. So there's this eating disorder thing is all tied in too. I mean, there's so many
Absolutely.
threads that are in the center that go back to veganism. The threads go outwards, and they touch on all these areas of our lives. You know what I mean? This is how
Absolutely.
it's being
It
designed.
starts with the worldview, right? That's the basis of it, is what you believe about your place in the world, your place in
Yeah.
existence, your place in creation. And, veganism is a religion, and it is a worldview.
Oh, totally.
It is a metaphysical, um, veganism has its own metaphysics, and it's very demented, the actual ideology, especially once people's health starts falling apart.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I wanted to share this story with the mums and the young mums out there, or potential vegan mums. And these are the mothers. Now, I'll say this, Tristan, in the last 3 weeks, the amount of young fruitarians in their teens, in their 20s, vegan men who have reached out to me because they've heard of me, my background and so forth, and they feel that they can talk to me because I understand, right? Been through it all. And it's mind-blowing what's happening to these but behind the scenes, they're not talking about openly. I've had photos sent to me of these skeletal men who have been hooked into these detox and fruitarian, periods of fasting. Long periods of fasting has become really just out of control, and these so-called experts, vegan experts, who've never had children, never, and they're giving this advice, and they'll just say, just keep detoxing. Yeah. And just keep going on. Yeah. And
what do you detox first? Your hair or your teeth? Right? Your hair or your teeth?
But the libido is the one thing the guys are saying to me. They're all losing their desire for sex. They're not interested. I mean, I've been in tears myself. This is why I feel I'm going to be a voice in the future, because, it breaks my heart because I've got that comparison. I can go back and see what life was actually like. And this is another thing I want to say about.
What was that?
You're going to either end up is whether I mean, people say, but there's people in their 70s and that are vegans. I say, well, there's a difference between surviving and thriving. You can arrive there with no teeth and as a skeleton, and you can't remember what you said 10 seconds ago because your mind just is gone, right? They're just, or you can thrive and have a totally different, grounded, keep your teeth. View of reality that's very different, as I discovered when I started eating animal foods again. And I know how hard it is to make that transition. And these are the people that are coming to me because they are struggling with the dichotomy of the opposing battle, the mental battle.
Yeah, it's their worldview. Their worldview has to crumble. Their worldview has to crumble for them to admit that what they've been doing is wrong.
Yeah, well, so if it's honest, but I can't touch it. It's dirty. It's gonna make me sick and all this. And I mean, I went through a bit of that for a few days, but then again, my body was going, "No, you need it." But the thing that's happening is people are becoming so disconnected from their own instincts, and that's kind of what I try and get them back to their ancestral wisdom. I mean, no one comes on the planet without being installed with the software to know what to eat and when to eat. But we've got to the point now where younger people in particular can't make a decision without seeking outside themselves for someone to tell them what they should eat, what they didn't eat, and have lost that. And this story I want to say about when I was a vegetarian when I had my daughter at 34. Yeah. And it was interesting because around the 4-month mark, and we lived in an area where there was Jewish, delicatessens, and they had, all kinds of dips and hummus. We used to go and get the hummus there. But 4 months into pregnancy, I got this intense desire for chopped liver, which is a deli, right?
When was the last time
that
you'd had that?
It was so strong.
When was the last time you'd had that? Like years ago? Or
but you know what? I didn't question it. I just said, okay, well, my body wants it. So I went and ate it through the pregnancy, and I continued for the rest of the duration of it. And she was born premature, but she had a good birth weight, And this is what I'm saying to the mothers that I've spoken to, the mothers that have had vegan children. They do say to me and confess that they've actually had these cravings, but they overrode them. And now they've got kids with just misformed teeth that are rotting. They've got kids with memory problems and all this sort of thing happening, and weak immune systems, and they're just riddled with guilt, Yeah. So I'm kind of getting them back on all the animal foods again. But we're going to see another apocalypse with this, though, Tristan. As we know, it's going to get worse, But this is what I mean. It's you've got to get back to listening to your own body and not override it. When you've got people invalidating your own direct experiences, which what happens when you no longer vegan, as we all know, who are vegan no longer, you get people saying stupid things to you to try and invalidate what has happened to you. I mean, the only way we perceive reality in this world is through our senses, through what it filters through our own body, and that's how we perceive our little world around us, right? What's going on. And when we have an experience, it comes through those senses, and to have someone else invalidate that, and people
Well, it's just
go along with
anecdotal. It's
that.
just anecdotal. Like the science says that a plant-based diet is superior. Show me the studies.
Exactly. So, this is where I kind of feel like my role is to kind of connect people back to trusting in their body's signals, because the body's always trying to steer you away from self-destruction, right? And it does send you signals and messages. And you know what? Since I started coming out, I went to this, when I say coming out, I went to a retreat last year, and there were some prominent raw vegan women there who were authors from Italy and Europe. And oh, Katya, it's good to meet you, and blah, 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 and how you, and I said, I'm not vegan anymore, right? I said it, came out and chatted. And you know what? Because of the way I said it with grace and just, that's how it is, and I had a few problems, and this is what happened, they softened, and then it was almost like a confessional. They said to me, you know what? I've been craving chicken. Because they knew I wasn't going to judge them. I wasn't going to, jump down their throat. And I just thought, wow. I said, well, what did you do? And she said, well, it was hard because it kept coming back, the desire, every time I think about it, and then I'd go off and try and get it out of my mind, but it would come back again. So eventually they did, and they said, I felt so good,
Immediately,
You see,
right?
this is
Like
someone
the first bite, your body just tells you, yes,
exactly,
this is
exactly,
food. I'm
and
no longer starving.
yeah, and then I had an interview I did with Jody, I told you the other day, and I was saying, when I first got this message so deeply in September last year to eat some chicken, because I hit a wall. I was on my hands and knees, literally on the dark night of the soul, because I had so many little series of things happening, and I knew that I wanted to do more in my life, but my body was letting me down, right? And I thought, what's going on here? I'm on the best diet, supposedly. And anyway, when I went back to Australia, I went to the supermarket, as we call them there, and the smell of the rotisserie chickens was like, oh. And I walked past, and, when we buy them, they come in a little bag that fits them nicely in the little handle. And my mind straight away said, oh, my God, you're picking up a body bag with the chicken in it, right? This is the mind, right? The construct.
Yeah.
And I put it down, even though I was salivating, right? And I just turned around and went straight to the fruit and veggies. Now, see how this is going on for so many people.
Yeah.
They're not, but it's become common for them, and they'll blame it and say, oh, it must be parasites, or, or something. The culprit's not the diet.
Yeah.
It's the same as when
You're
people
still
go on
detoxing
detox.
from the meat that you used to eat, right?
Yeah.
You're still
Same with the
programmed. This is what the
detox.
doctor said. We watched a video yesterday. We did a stream last night, and the doctor was just saying, you're addicted to it. It's basically heroin, right? So you got to go over with, some of Klaus's sponsors like the Beyond Burger and Memphis Meats, and you can get some methadone, some beef methadone.
Oh, dear. It is. And the thing is, when you have this veil lifted, when you start eating animal foods, you can see, it's like you've got privy into this little window of truth. And you can see the convoluted arguments. You can see there's no substance to them, right? But when you're hooked in it, when you're in that world, that plant-based, you can't see it. And
You
that's
refuse to.
the
You shut it out. It's a cult. I mean, they're constantly, they have rituals with which they keep people in their cult. They have ritual shamings of people for even talking about possibly having cravings for meat. They shame people for admitting that they have health issues. They shame people for not being vegan anymore when the people don't want to be dying anymore, right? So this is, we see it constantly on YouTube, and that's why people like John Venus, shout out to John Venus, people who actually have a connection to themselves, people who have a shred of integrity are distancing themselves from these effeminate, sickly dupes.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
see
yeah,
more of
yeah.
it. We're going to see a lot more of it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, and it'll get to they're trying to make the physique of a male look like this is how men look like,
Yeah.
because for those of us who've been on the planet a lot longer, we know a lot different. It was never like that,
You even look at
What I wanted
vegetarians
to
from the
bring up was
70s. You look at footage from like the sannyasins and like Osho's folks. So I mean, they were
yeah,
vegetarian. They were still eating eggs and dairy. Not even all of them were fully vegetarian, but I mean, they were still able to work with their hands and their bodies, right? But as soon as we saw the
yes,
vegetarian thing take
yes,
a backseat to veganism, you just see this heroin chic look, right? It's like and the media is constantly programming us with this as well. We're being
that's right.
constantly it's being shoved down our throat, and it's been like this since at least since I was a kid. In the fashion magazines for women, it's just this constant barrage of heroin junkie looking models that are gaunt. Um,
Yeah, yeah, for
and now
sure.
you see the fashion shows, and it's all like transhumanist heroin models, wearing like one eye, like one eye
Yep.
periscope, and really weird stuff.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, what
Yeah,
you
it's
were?
all coming down. The agenda's coming down very rapidly from all different angles. There was another thing I was going to bring up, the snacking. Another thing I observed when I was back in Australia. I've got a couple of grandchildren, a couple of boys, and
Oh, nice.
uh, a lot of the kids that I knew that go back into their homes, when I say kids, mums who've got kids, and their cupboards are full of these carbohydrate, obviously
Yeah.
heavily carbohydrate, snack foods. Now, what happens with a lot of the vegan mums is, and even speaking to some younger vegan friends, they get to the point where they just zone in on the word vegan on any product, right? Don't even take into consideration if it's a vegan muffin. Oh, good, I'll have that. It's vegan. If it's full of sugar or there's these chemicals, and it doesn't come into the consideration for them when they're buying it, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's so these corporations, of course, have seen this and jumped on and producing these massive amounts of snack foods, vegan snack foods, right, for
Yeah.
kids, and like vegan chips that are, I don't know, made from a variety of vegetables or something, because
Yeah, I mean,
everyone
there's
thinks
some of
they're
them aren't
healthy.
even so bad on paper, right? You might have some like plantain chips, but they're fried in soy oil, right? It was like if
Yeah,
you were to make that
yeah,
at home for
yeah,
your kids, take some plantains,
yeah,
fry them up in some butter. I mean,
yeah.
these are all local ingredients. Like I can get plantains out in my yard. I can get some. We could milk our own cows and make butter, but oh no, that's not sustainable. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be eating the junk food. We should be eating the plant-based snacks. Don't have plantains fried in butter. Have soy oil, right? Replace your cow with
That's right. That's
industrial
right.
machine tits, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know what? Sometimes when the vegans, the younger ones, have arguments, like to get into debates, and I love getting into a bit of debate, but I say, you know what? It'd be really great for you to travel and go to some of these other countries. And when you do go out to the rural areas. Go to Asia and
yeah.
have a look what
Go
goes
go
on
meet
there,
the
because
people that your diet is trying to destroy. Go look in the face the people who your diet and who your lifestyle seeks to destroy. In the name of progress and sustainability, you're destroying that. People who actually are
go
connected to the
look at
land.
these, people in their 70s that are still carrying big, heavy things, and they've got strength in their bones, and
These
they're not weak
70-year-old
and
Ecuadorians,
fragile.
right?
And
These 70-year-old Ecuadorians, there are 70-year-old Ecuadorians who are fitter than I am, right? These guys,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
carrying logs up
yeah,
and down the mountain every single day, and yet these people are,
yeah.
their style of life is apparently unsustainable because they don't import all their foods from Nestle, Cargill, and Beyond Meat, right?
No, and these communities would laugh at you if you told them not to eat their crab, or keep their crabs, and,
Yeah,
and so they grow,
save the
and then you can
cows.
eat them, and they just laugh
You're gonna
if
come
they're told
liberate
not
the
to eat meat.
alpaca. I mean, you're looking at animals, flocks of animals that are dependent on humans to keep them safe from predators and stuff. They leave a very cush life, and yeah, they're gonna say we're gonna free your alpaca. These Highland Andean people would laugh at you. They would chase you out of
Totally.
their town. This can only happen. The
Yes,
only
they
way this
would
can
too.
be, right? The
Obviously.
only way these people can evangelize their religion is through the internet. Because in any real community, in a small community where people are connected to the land, where they work with their hands, where they have families, where they actually raise their own animals, they'll tell you to get the hell, they'll shame you out of their town.
That's right. That's right. Actually, this is why I'm in North Thailand. I'm right up, high, and I'm in a rural area, and people just think I'm nuts. But I tell you what, it's been so good for me to see this and see the communities and the bonds between them. And you know what, Tristan, I've seen some chickens being killed, and seriously, the chickens they didn't even know. They don't even fight.
No, because
They're
their
just
body
there.
still runs. You can cut the head
It's
off, and the body will still. They're like little lizards.
no, but they just hold them and they just like it's like the animal night. There's none of this stuff that goes on like in these metal toys. It's so far removed. But the thing is, so many of the people, the young kids in LA and these Western more cities have got no idea that this goes on in other parts of the world. That this is how life was for a good majority of the population cultures.
Yeah.
So. Hopefully they'll get out and go to these places, and the ones that do get some more insight that challenges a lot of their beliefs. But yeah. So what about you were there in Ecuador, and there must be a lot of vegan kids around you. What do you see that's different
Well, I
in
mean,
the
first of all, the
as
reason
opposed to
we
this?
Great question. One of the first things I'll say is the reason I got into a high fat diet, the reason I read Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Wesson Price, and that kind of sent me down this rabbit hole of looking at animal foods as possibly the missing link in many people's diet. What sent us down this whole rabbit hole was we were off and on, never really vegan for like 2 years. We were kind of in and out. We knew some people in the vegan movement. Most of them were pretty sick. I knew a couple people who it seemed to work for. I felt better than I did on a standard American diet, and that was my bait, right? It was like, okay, I feel good. Like, I feel better. So we got kind of dragged into this, played with it off and on. Every time we would eat meat or fish, my eyes would light up. I would feel my body react so positively. Yet, I still thought, well, maybe, if you supplement correctly, and if I get this right or that right, or get the right amount of algae in. Similar stories you see a lot of people. Luckily for me, I was blessed enough to be able to see the damage that it was doing, and we left it. But anyways, our daughter was born. She was conceived right after our vegan experimentation phase. As soon as her teeth started coming out, her baby teeth, her milk teeth, they dissolved like powdered milk. So we saw our daughter's teeth, her baby teeth, just dissolving. So we also saw
Wow.
this in all of the other people around us who were trying to feed their kids a vegan or a plant-based diet. All of these people's
Yep.
kids started getting their teeth would fall out. What we
Sick.
saw in the people who were persistently vegan were a lot of behavioral issues and more autism spectrum type, obsessive behaviors, disconnection from reality, a lot more nonverbal type problems, and even difficulty making eye contact was something else that we would see a lot, and we still do in a lot of our vegetarian fed friends' kids, and it's really sad to see, but they don't make the connection. Right? I mean, you tell them
No,
straight
you
up what's
don't.
going on. You can
No.
tell them exactly what happened in your own family and how we saw my daughter's teeth crumble out. And then as soon as we started giving her butter, animal foods, broth, and we started getting her on basically an ancestral type diet, like a Weston A. Price style diet, back in 2013, her teeth hardened up, and she would bite me and draw blood when we were wrestling around and stuff. So she's a strong little girl. She's getting her adult teeth now. Her adult teeth are coming in perfectly clean, and our son, who was fed meat as a young kid, whose first food that he ate was liver and meat. His teeth are perfectly normal, perfectly fine, no issues with dental caries at all, not a single brown spot. So that's just one of the things I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen more
Oh
because
yeah,
you've had more
absolutely.
patience. You had a lot more patience for the vegangelicals than I did.
Well, like I said, I've got young kids. I just seem to resonate with them. I think because I think, I've got a young spirit, and I'm not judgmental. I listen and I feel for them. And when I've got these young mums who were vegan and had vegan pregnancies and now they're facing the consequences of that, it is heartbreaking, really. And that, like I said, it's brought me to tears sometimes, but their kids are starting to improve. But what we're seeing on the internet is these vegan mums, there's so much sugar they give their kids, like the
Mangoes,
snack
man. The
foods, the
dang
cookies.
mangoes.
Because they're always hungry. That's another thing I've noticed with vegan kids. They're always hovering around the kitchen. They're hungry all the
And they,
time.
they get
Right?
skinny,
They
but
would eat.
they get skinny with a distended gut, right? So you very skinny
Exactly. They've got these
arms, no
little pot
muscle.
bellies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, little pot bellies. And you see, when you're having meat, as you know, and animal foods, you're satiated, right? You
Yeah.
go out, you're not even thinking of food. You're going out playing and doing all your stuff. These kids are always looking for food.
Yeah.
It's like
They're not
that's
getting the
one thing I did
nourishment they
notice.
want.
Yeah.
They have to graze all day. I mean, they say that Dr. Greger actually eats over 200 kilograms of vegetable matter every day to maintain his level of flatulence. Um, I think I saw that on Wikipedia. But yeah, so that's something that I've noticed a lot of. Another thing I've noticed is parasite issues, right? Whereas even kids on a
Yeah.
mixed diet are not getting the same parasite issues that I see. These people are giving them a lot of fruit and a lot of
Yeah.
green juices and stuff like
Glad you
that.
brought that up because you know what? I tell you what, the biggest mind screw has been for me. Can you imagine? I've had classical training, right, from these schools of rejuvenation, whatever, going back decades. So everything I've been taught's been turned on its head through
Yeah.
my own direct experiences, right? What happened was prior to me starting to eat animal foods, well, I just started actually a couple of days. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give myself a cleanse. And I did a parasite cleanse. And you know what, Tristan, I could believe what came out of me because I had candida was starting too. And I really feel the parasites, see, this is all lies too. There's more parasites in the body because they feed on yeasts and sugars and, now I'm eating animal foods and I'm eating a great deal of them. Believe me, I've cut down all sugar. My whole diet's completely changed. There's not one sign of pathogenic infection or because I used to analyze poop, so I always look at the toilet and I know what things are there and what it tells me. Not one bit of it. And I did another parasite cleanse after I'd been eating, meats and animal foods. I don't eat dairy because my body just doesn't call for it.
Yeah.
Not one thing came out. And I'm thinking, again, this is turning everything. And I can see the hook. Now, if people are going on these detoxes and they get told, oh, well, it's just parasites coming out. Well, of course, eat more fruit. And, of course, that's creating more of an environment for these pathogenic
Yeast and
infections.
fungus. A lot of people have major yeast and fungus
Exactly.
issues.
And then more parasites. And then they're expelling more parasites. Oh, look, there's more coming out. And I just thought, oh, my God, that's the hook. It's the complete opposite, And
Very often it seems to be, right? I mean, you're just detoxing from all the meat you used to be eating, they'll say. And then you eat meat and all the detox stops. But they're like, no, you got to just keep going. You stop the detox cycle, right? I mean, people like Dan the Life Regenerator are out there. I mean, withering before our very eyes, physically and mentally. We are seeing people degenerate. And it's just, it breaks my heart to see the kids get put through this too, right? So it's like, well, we're going to go get our kid tested for parasites because he's very distended and he's having mood issues and he's not sleeping well. And and I'll ask some of these people, well, what are you feeding them? And they're like, more rice, potatoes, fruit, and I mean, hopefully they're taking supplements and stuff, but it's alarming.
Well, like I said, this detox thing has really just gone, it's exploded for some reason. I think, let's look at the whole environment we've got kids living in. There's a lot of wounded kids out there that are seeking to feel a part of a tribe, to belong, to also have control over their life. And this is a perfect vehicle to do that. You know what I mean? The detoxing route.
Right,
And
it's like club eating
they,
disorder. It's you have
yeah,
a
and if they went
community.
back, yeah, and the good thing when I studied homeopathy, of course, in that era of the 1800s, early 1900s, they say very puritanical time. If you look at some of the treatments that were used by the medicos, it was all about purging, right?
Purgatives, yeah.
And there was some really barbaric stuff, using arsenic and mercury, anything purge the
Mercury.
body. So there was this really big element of being pure and clean, all tied into religion.
Yeah.
Even Arnold Edward, he had some really big mental problems. People don't bother to look at the history of these people and look at the times
Right.
that they came from, They don't even take the time to do that. And this was a big eye opener for me, because when I studied that, it's just how it was, very Victorian, very, that era, very rigid and restrictive, and sex and all this, and lust, and we have to quell these lustful desires, and we have to,
Yeah. Well, and the
get rid of all
veganism,
that.
the abstinence from animal foods in most of these religions, the abstinence from animal foods is directly linked with
Totally.
fertility. So they're doing it for fertility purposes very often. And the same cults that say restrict food intake will also say don't procreate. So there's this big
Yeah.
link there between sterilization and this diet, and it goes even, I mean, it could be a reflection of what's happening physically, because obviously physically it does sterilize people. Freely the Banana Girl, bragging about losing your period is just it's just
Yeah,
detox, guys.
exactly. Yeah,
But
exactly.
then
But you know what? In Victoria Skalvinska's book, Survival in the 21st Century, you would have read that, yeah?
I haven't
You
read it.
heard of
No,
that?
no, I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, well, they were saying the same thing then. The periods, I remember that when, when I was in my 20s reading that, and I showed this to my mother, and she thought it was nuts. And he was saying then that it was a form of detoxification, and I remember that vividly,
Yeah.
justifying loss of, menstrual things.
Yeah,
So
giving
that
birth
kind
is
of,
just, you're just detoxifying this toxic human from your body, right? When you give birth, you're detoxifying this terrible child, which is going to just exhale CO2 and create more climate change and eat meat and be so selfish. This is the narrative we're given. It sounds extreme, but it's when you actually look at the
it's
cultural
not. It's not.
programming,
How
this
do you
is.
think? How do you think we can get to more of the? I mean, do we just kind of the backstop for these people that are going to arrive at your doorstep absolutely shattered and crumbled, and we've got to fix them up, or how can we?
I mean, you try to reach
Because
them. You try and reach them different ways, but I mean, there's a different entry point for everybody, right? Some of it's seeing their children wither.
yeah,
Some of it's like, I mean, one of my friends who recently finally left veganism, it was his wife, constantly depressed, constantly stressed out, feeling terrible. I mean, there's a different endpoint for everybody. For me, it was just like, yeah, it was easy for me because I wasn't attached to any ideology with it. I just got slowly sucked into it, and some of the
mm,
ideas that did resonate and connect with me kind of infiltrated and led me down that hole. But I mean, I think there's going to be a different approach for everybody, right? Like one of my kids might be responsive to one method of coercion to get them to clean the room up, and then another one, it's going to take a totally different approach to get them to clean the room.
yeah. Well, I agree there, because not everybody went into veganism for ethical reasons. And I went in for rejuvenation, which is another whole thing. And you look at now society, there's this whole um, area of longevity and keeping people, youthful, and that
Yeah.
and that also feeds into it. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look,
Well,
it
that's what
feeds
that's
into
the
the back to
serpent's first.
veganism.
The serpent's first promise was you're going to live forever. Shall surely not die.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just love to take all these people out in nature and go, just sit out here for a few weeks and watch what happens. Watch animals, how they are with each other, male and females, and how they are around each other, and look at the plants and how we all come from a seed. We've all come from that, and we're all going to go back into the ground, whether we like that or not. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah.
what other? I mean, what are some other trends that you see kind of among the vegan and vegetarian parenting crowds? I mean, I've got something pulled up on one of these tabs. Here it is. Let's pull up this browser. There it is. We've got an Instagram profile called Raise Vegan. 25.4 thousand followers. Sorry, I can't screen share
Yeah.
with you because it gets too jumbled. I don't have enough computing
That's
juice.
okay. That's
But
okay. You can
this
read
is
it out.
it's a magazine, and it's all about raising kids on a vegan diet. So they get pictures of vegan parents with their babies, and it's essentially propaganda telling people to give their vegan
Yeah,
children
yeah,
to raise their
yeah,
kids vegan.
yeah,
This is happening at an alarming rate, but at the same time, we're seeing, here's an article about vegan breastfeeding kills baby. Vegan breastfeeding is causing an 11-month-old baby to die, and parents are charged with neglect after an autopsy indicated the baby suffered from severe deficiencies in B12 and vitamin A.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, that happened in Australia. There was that. I mean, most people are aware of that one where there was parents were jailed for child abuse for neglect and feeding their child a vegan diet, got rickets. I think that's what happened. I mean, that was
Yeah.
something that was seen of for decades. But I just feel how can I say? I just think the peer pressure is going to mount, particularly in tandem with the mainstream saturation
Yeah.
of veganism. Do you know what I mean? And it's like there's just going to be more. Hopefully, there's going to be more and more of ex-vegans come out and
Yeah.
feel they can't keep secrecy. They got to talk about it, and I think
And it's
that's what it is.
okay to
Because
talk about it, right? I mean,
yeah,
we've all
yeah,
been fooled. We've all been duped at times in our lives about various things. Don't let your pride get to you. Don't let this fake tribalism. Understand too that these aren't your real friends. These are internet fake friends. Do you think the vegan community gives a shit about you? When I talked to Bobby from Bobby's World, he said he tried to collaborate with all these vegan YouTubers and none of them wanted to help promote his channel because they were all looking to make that money. They're all looking to get sponsorships like, Klaus from Plant Based News gets from Prince Khalid, His Royal Highness
yeah,
Prince Khalid
yeah.
of Saudi Arabia, one of the richest men in the world. So they're looking for money. They're looking for recognition. They want their own subs. These people eat each other up. So don't be afraid to come out. And there are people who will support you. It's like any vegan YouTubers out there. I've been in contact with many of whom don't even want to come out yet about it. But there are people who understand. And Katya and myself, Katya, what's your channel again on YouTube? I know you've got a channel.
Raw women's wisdom.
Woman is wisdom.
I'm sharing my wisdom from all this, and I've been interviewing some other women. I'm just starting, but but I'm really going to, pick up the momentum because it's the most. So like I said, it's something I would never imagine, but it really is fueling me in some way, and I can see if I look back over my life, it's been leading to this in a way. It's kind of going to be my legacy in a way to act, and like I said, my area where I feel I can help is to help dismantle deconstruct the prison and the battle that goes on in the mind when you're making that transition. Because I know how hard it was for me. As I'll be honest with you, I still haven't got over. There's times it's weaker than what it was, but I didn't oscillate back into veganism after I started eating animal foods, but I kind of said to myself, oh, I'll do this for a while, and with the intent to go back, right?
Yeah.
But then I found, as some have other friends of mine who also were long-term vegans. Actually, one friend of mine was Peter's Sexiest Vegan of the Year. I mean, who would have thought he actually transitioned away from it last year too, and he and I had some great conversations. You never thought we'd be discussing pork belly or ribs.
Yeah.
We used to talk about fruit, but I don't know where I was going to go with that, but I was just going to say that I think that if you can get sort of more friends and people who are supportive too of you around, and
Yeah.
who've been through that, and you've got that compassion, and that's what I'm kind of offering to some of these younger people, because they're so lost, Tristan. Some of them are so lost they don't know who to believe anymore,
Yeah.
and they just grasp. They don't know. They're hearing this. There's so much conflicting, and I think you said too, conflicting, contradictory, confusing information out there, and that's the thing with the internet. It's just flooded with all these people make themselves an expert in
Yeah,
six
you get
months of being.
decision fatigue where you don't even know what
No,
decisions you should be
no.
thinking about making, right? So weighing the options
No.
becomes nearly impossible. I mean, that's a social engineering technique. That's a propaganda technique where you give somebody a
Yeah.
bunch of conflicting information and you try to get them to internalize that, and it leads to a state that makes them hyper suggestible and also low level agitated, so they're able to be advertised to, right? So I mean, that's part of it. You have a whole generation of children that are many of them raised by television and the internet, and
That's right. You
there's no
said television.
tradition. So they have no
Yeah. So,
traditions. They have no, their mother is probably having to go to work to support them. She might be a single
yes.
mom. You have abusive relationships with parents. I mean, my generation was raised by the baby boomers who, not many of them were too into the idea of parenting and family. So it's an interesting phenomenon we see. You see diet becoming a proxy religion. You see diet becoming, diet cults becoming a religion, and it's dangerous whether it's based on animal foods or on plant foods. I mean, either way, you're looking at, just worshiping
The
idols,
irony
worshiping
of that is,
illusions.
though, Tristan, some of the religions, like the Christian fundamentalists, and I know a couple of people, and
Hmm.
they do promote traditional family values, though, in some ways. The family unit and how important it is to keep that together in some ways.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's
So
too bad that the Western world is kind of, I mean, the Western Church, the Roman Catholic Church, and Protestantism. There's so much conflicting, confounding
mm,
doctrines and all kinds of nonsense in there as well. Um, yeah, no, you're right. Traditionally, that's religion, ethnicity,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
All
they
these
do.
things are being eroded, right? So ethnos, religion, our connection to you have a generational divide that happens too, and that breaks off knowledge and breaks off our ability to actually pass on knowledge on how to feed ourselves to our children as well. So all these things are important, and veganism, and even you see people on carnivore diets turn it into a religion where they're drinking each other's blood and just getting into all sorts of degeneracy and
Well, it goes from one
weirdness.
extreme to the other. And if you've come out of an extreme restricted vegan diet, whether it be fruitarian, I've not been there, the worst thing for me to do is to go extreme again. You know what I mean? So I guess for a lot of people, they want to grasp onto that. And look, there's no doubt it does offer healing originally, and it gives you that ability to be able to ascertain what foods have been creating problems. Like I think I've started to say this, but I kind of went off on a tangent, which was what I've discovered, and once I started eating animal foods, is things cleared up that I had not even slightly connected to eating to being vegan. I had this tension in my jaw, right? Within a week, and I'd had it for ages. It was like it wasn't, like maybe I've been clenching my jaw at night or something like that. A lot of TMJ
Yeah.
problems that people have, right? And tension around the neck that totally disappeared. And my hearing improved. Now, who would have thought? One thing that's very common is a weak bladder and and getting up through the night. Now that stopped for me. I was getting up, and the sleep problems, because when you start having that, and you're not getting sleep. Plus, throw in all the EMFs and everything else, and people not going outside, and their whole life has become urbanized in indoors. Throw all that in together, and you've got people's circadian rhythms, going skewed. But when you're not getting sleep, it'll just wreck everything, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's often a straw from people I've spoken to, was they were not able to get to deep sleep, and there was the fatigue, and autoimmune things started happening. So
Hmm.
again, because when you're not having animal fats, your immunity starts to really go down, right? So
Absolutely. Well, you're getting a lot of like omega-6 fatty acids too. Very little
exactly,
saturated fat. So I mean,
exactly.
there's so many issues with it, so many nutrient deficiencies and nutrient imbalances, that it's people try to supplement. Where do you even start? Where do you even begin?
Well, and that's why people say, why don't you go back? I mean, when you see these things cease, all these things you're suffering with, and symptoms cease to even exist within a couple of weeks. This is how quick it is. I even had some things happen within days. I mean, where else does that happen? It's
Yeah.
almost like the other end of the spectrum when you first with the raw foods, but it is very quick. Then you go, whoa,
Yeah.
and like as you discover, to have that sense of groundedness and not have those insulin rushes. Because that was another thing I had, the amount of the population I would estimate that would be pre-diabetic, and this is not diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just really high, because I was on a pre-diabetic. I can say that now,
Yeah, even
with
people
the
who are
amount of the high
thin.
carbs. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and of
Even
course
people
we
who are
know they're
lean.
targeting the grains deliberately with the glyphosates and the GMOs and everything, and that's why I think a lot of young kids are having their guts just ripped. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
these problems, because the vegan diet too is different now to a certain degree, but there's more emphasis on grains than
Mm.
there was when back 25, 30
What a
years ago.
surprise, right? What a surprise.
Oh
The
yeah,
emphasis is on
yeah,
the
yeah,
most
yeah,
profitable,
yeah,
patented seeds. We
yeah.
got to have the wheat, the corn, the soy. We're going to make you burgers made out of
Yeah.
soy because having your own goats, having your own sheep on a small piece of land, having your own chickens, having your own cows, that's unsustainable because they exhale methane. Right, so that's the argument now. It goes beyond the health thing. They know that the health thing falls apart almost instantly. So if you're not dumb enough to buy these skeletons, these skeletons with a piece of flesh stretched over their face, telling you about the benefits of a vegan diet for the
Oh,
health, if you don't buy into that, they'll immediately jump into, well, it's sustainable. And what, do you hate the planet? Are you trying to destroy the planet? Everybody can't eat all meat. Where it's like nobody says that. I've never told anybody to eat all meat. I say you
were
can
you
do
an
it.
angry vegan, Tristan?
No, no, no. I was embarrassed to be associated with vegans because, right, and this was even early in the days. This is before it got like really high level cringe. It wasn't so bad back then, but I didn't want to tell people. People would ask me why I'm not eating meat and stuff. It was like, oh, I'm just trying this thing out. It's, I never really evangelized it. I was never sold on it. I just kept trying to
Yeah.
figure out if there was a right way to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe if I
yeah,
do
yeah,
it this
exactly.
way.
Yeah. No, I can see I was getting emotional. The emotional swings. I mean, you're flooding your body with so much sugar all the time, and you're on this sugar high, and oh man, that's addictive. And when I started eating animal foods, and then I thought I'll bring in some fruit, and that feeling came back again. Man, I don't want this feeling. I don't
Yeah.
want this feeling. And I took the fruit out, because as we know, the fruit's all hybridized. It's twice the size as it used to be. It's all been changed.
Sugar
And
bombs.
of course they are. And the other thing too with this is it ostracizes you from family and friends. I was like, don't ask mum around for a barbecue or something because not that I was, I
Even though
might
you
turn my
don't
nose up,
intend to,
but I
right? You
wasn't
become a
preaching
pain
at
in the
them.
butt because it's like, well, I brought this big old, this big old salad. Nobody wants to eat it, right? It's like, oh, mom's gonna want me to eat her damn salad again. She's not gonna eat any meat. There's subtle things that happen. I see people disown their families because their families won't buy into their
Yeah,
ideology.
yeah. There was an Australian paper. There was a woman, a young woman, I think she was in 20s, decided that she'd send out invitations to a wedding, and anyone who ate meat was not invited in the family because they were murderers. Can you believe it? So
I was gonna do a stream on that. I was gonna do a stream just on that one because I've seen people with it. I've seen families torn apart, and I've seen parents ruin their children with this stuff. But I mean,
no, it's
it's
getting
crazy, and we're gonna see a lot more of this as society starts to further break down.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. The
as
division's going to be deeper. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
and
I get accused a lot of the time. Well, you're just feeding into the division. You're just feeding into the divide and conquer. But people don't really see the big picture of what's actually going on here. They think it's just, oh, we all got to come together and figure out this planetary diet to eat. Whereas I don't see it that way at all. I see it as like we need to focus on local agriculture. We need to focus on locally, being connected to our
totally,
own foods because the people who are pushing
totally.
these, the vegan diet on us are the ones who want to remove us from that. You've got Nestle, Kellogg, Cargill, Bayer, Monsanto, these people
Awesome.
all pushing the vegan diet. And people don't think there's a conflict of interest when they're inside of it. They don't understand what's going on. When you're getting how much money from Prince Khalid to run plant-based news, and that's your sponsor, and that's who owns your business, it's easy to see rainbows and unicorns everywhere and pretend like you're just
Oh,
helping the world.
totally. And from Australia, I mean, it's quite a progressive country, right? And very sophisticated in the sense as far as the vegan agenda goes.
Hmm. Yeah.
But you see families going out and all the kids are having acai bowls and fruit and masses of more high carbs, and fruits, and they're all running around like all sort of spiked up. But it's infiltrated everything in every aspect of society, isn't it?
Why Australia? Now you're on the ground there. I talked to Belinda Fettke the other day. She's lovely. Shout out to
Yeah.
Belinda Fettke. Thanks for coming on and having that great conversation. Why do you think Australia is such a big base for this for the push for global plant-based dietary guidelines and
That's a
massive?
good question. That's a good question. Again, it's seen as very sophisticated and very, it ticks all the boxes. it ticks the environmental boxes. I mean, if you're looking at something, right, and it's clean and green, and you've got all these gorgeous looking shops that are environmentally doing the right thing, and it's appealing. It's appealing, and that's what attracts to people. Let's face it. I mean, lots of vibrant fruit colours are often appealing than a butcher's row of grey and red.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, it's the imagery
Yeah,
of it, right? And you get
it's
the
imagery exactly, and so the green thing is everywhere. And I mean, there's even there was a vegan complex which consisted of a dozen or so different vegan restaurants and vegan eateries. And I think it was in Sydney, and then they did it on the Gold Coast as well. But when I first opened on the Gold Coast, it's just out of the box. Now there's probably a dozen or so really good vegan restaurants that are doing really well, and it's growing more and more and more. So that's how it is.
Yeah. Now, what
But,
other foods does Australia produce other than livestock? Because from what I've seen, uh,
always been wheat that goes back in their history, and grain. But yeah, go on.
well, it's just funny because it seems like the only resource you guys have as far as food is animal foods, animal products. And when you look at what the people who lived originally on that
No,
continent were
grains.
eating,
We do grow a lot of grain. Wheat we're always known as the wheat belts, and there was, we were big producers of wheat. That goes back in our history. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I don't
it's
know
just
what
funny
other
because
grain.
you see these people trying to shut down animal agriculture in Australia, where one of your biggest exports is grass-fed beef. To me, it's just
Oh, yeah. Well, like America, there's huge pockets of really full-on meat eaters, and they're in there, and well, I call them.
I'm not a big proponent of exporting meat either, right? It's like these should be actually grown. These should be procured in the regions that you're living. We don't need to
Yeah,
export.
I agree totally too.
Sending chicken. Tyson
Yes.
Chicken, who also is involved with Beyond Meat, who plant-based news we talked about yesterday also shills for. They're constantly putting up videos of people trying the Beyond Burger. Tyson Foods is the biggest investor in this. Get this through your heads, vegans. You guys are useful idiots.
That's right.
Tyson Foods takes chickens from the U.S., sends them to China, processes them in China, then sends them back to the U.S. for us human cattle to consume. I mean,
It's
this is how
just part of the
inefficient.
push too to urbanize, to funnel everybody into these urbanized cities where
Absolutely.
you become dependent on everything for all your needs, really, and that's part of it all, of course. They're trying
Absolutely.
to take land and procure people to have their own land and procure that and have their animals. I mean, that's the thing they're going to jump on next. But I think the great thing about us doing this is, and at least you'd be able to tell people that life was a lot different 40 years ago. This has only just happened rapidly in, say, the last 15. And, for a lot of the younger kids, they think life has always been like this, That's not the case. So at least you'd be able to give them that comparison. But like I said, get back in touch with themselves and with all the dietary stuff. I mean, like I said, it's just become something so simple has been turned into the biggest complex, confusing maze for people, right?
Yep.
Trying to navigate what is it I eat, and I also, I really feel that all these what I eat in a day videos is fueling incredible eating disorders too.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
YouTube fitness and YouTube health, they're just they're mental illness beauty pageants. That's what this place is. And people don't realize this. Your gurus on both sides are displaying just classic eating disorder, mental illness patterns, and even trying to start cults around them. You've got vegan YouTube is obviously full of little cults. You got Nature Boy and their fruitarian cult that they market towards, the black community. And you've got Nature Boy for white boys, Sverige, drinking his viewers' blood. I mean, you have just as many predatory people being, revealed in these little cult diets, and it's alarming how readily people jump into these.
Well, it's the rise of narcissism, isn't it? With I saw a
Yeah.
couple of documentaries around that with the social media influence, you know,
Yeah.
and that's all part of it too. It's all designed to keep us as self-absorbed, the more our attention on that, and
Navel gazing, right? Just a
yeah.
life of artistic navel gazing for the rest of your life. You know, take your LSD micro doses and make sure to jump on the Silicon Valley procured YouTube, and you can see how to live your life and show everyone else how to live. It's this funny reflective society, right? It's like a hall of mirrors, the social media environment.
Yeah, for sure. And well, we just keep doing what we're doing, and I think it'll gain some momentum. The more, and I really feel there's going to be a lot more people hit the wall by the end of this year too. There'll be even more. So I don't know whether there's something working for us in that sense. You know, energetically, people are waking up because I mean, like I said, when you've got more and more coming out, more information that you're seeing, that you can go, wow, yeah, now let me think about this because this is happening to me, or yeah, that looks more sustainable if I do, you know, if I choose to get foods this way and such. People start asking questions and question everything around them more, so, you know.
Hmm.
So I kind of feel a bit more positive about that. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, there are more people getting sucked into it and more people leaving it every day, so it's hard to tell what the net balance really is.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the people who are ready for to hear the message I hear now, they'll hear it. I mean, that's why do you think Klaus is here in the chat, just desperately trying to defend his illusion, right? He's here arguing with all you people in the chat because he understands that we're right. Like you wouldn't be,
Tell him I was on that side as well. I used to do the same thing.
yeah.
It's so, this is why I've got compassion. I actually, and it's not looking at that I'm superior or you're superior and what all this kind of thing is, but it's like saying, okay, I know the mindset, I know what was going on. And it's not until these things are going to start happening to yourself. And people have even said to me, but Kathy, you're older, I'm not going, that might not happen to me, and it's pure ignorance for someone to think that they know how they're going to be 20 years from now,
Right.
and think they're going to take whatever kind of, I mean, wisdom to me is a badge you get after 50. If you're around 55, there's something else that shifts and comes in. But you can't bring life experiences from now and bring it 20 years and think it's going to be the same and you know better. It doesn't work
Yeah,
like
it's like
that,
you're
you know?
14 years old and you get some album that you wanted this album so bad, you really liked one of the songs, you get this album, you listen to it a few times, and you're like, this is the most amazing. This is how music should be done. Like this is the best. This is my favorite band, and I mean, you think that's gonna last forever? I mean, we clutch onto these ideas, these novelties, and yeah, you might feel better on your plant-based diet based
Well, the
around
thing
kale
is,
and nuts
you
than
can't grow more teeth. The second lot of teeth. So.
exactly. You're gonna feel better than eating McDonald's foods, but how soon are you gonna start, having your hair fall out, having your teeth fall out, and going into paranoid delusions? I mean, that's another thing you see a lot of. Have
Oh
you
yeah,
talked to a lot of people who've
yeah.
experienced this aspect of the vegan
Absolutely,
degeneration?
absolutely.
Because it's alarming.
Look, yeah, oh, totally. This is why I say when I have some conversations with vegans now, it is so hard because they're not grasping simple concepts. They can't keep even the train of thought going, to extract some conclusion that's logical out of the conversation. I mean, you'd never have to explain this years ago. You know what I mean? It's something so simple.
They're like, dude, no, no,
Um,
my teeth
yeah.
are falling out, my hair's falling out, I have no sex drive. Show me the studies that a vegan diet isn't the perfect diet for a human being. Show me the studies. It's like your teeth are falling out while you say
Exactly. I
show.
mean, it's horrendous for us to hear that guys in their 20s have no sex, are losing their libido. I'm hearing this and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
is this for real? Is this going on?
But it's good. It's sustainable because children are the biggest burden on the environment, according to the television, right? Saying people who are trying to push plant-based diets say children are bad. You exhale CO2. That is bad. You use up all of our resources. Therefore, you are a useless eater. Right? That's what they see children as.
Oh yeah. I mean, what I love about your channel, Tristan, is that you're giving the millennial kind of aspect because, like I was saying, this is accelerated so much more in the last few years, and you guys are really bearing the brunt of a lot of it, right? But then you've got the generation coming below that are really lost in some
Poor
ways.
kids,
And
yeah.
I'm not saying this, I'm lost in as far as the connection to their ancestral wisdom and their own instinctual wisdom is what
Well, their
I'm
culture's
saying.
further degenerated. I mean,
Yeah,
every few years, the culture degenerates even further. Um, I mean, when I was a kid, it wasn't. It was scandalous when I was a kid to sexualize young children. Still, now it's totally
yeah,
normalized, right? Now Disney's
yeah.
sexualizing young girls and having mock ritual sacrifices on MTV and stuff. That's all normal for these kids. So I mean, it was just the degradation of culture, the lack of morality, and the total nihilistic onslaught. It's
Absolutely.
it's really harsh for this generation, right? And it's, of course, most of this is done with a smiley face, and it's so sustainable. The vegan Beyonce and Jay-Z are going vegan. They're just these amazing celebrities. They're all going vegan. It's like these kids, they're given a lot of weird little things to worship, little false idols, and yeah, I mean, veganism, it's just one little aspect of this culture war that we're seeing, and the culture war being a total war on humanity as I see it, right? I mean, we're being programmed to accept a very dehumanizing ideology, and then we're creating a dehumanizing world after we accept that dehumanizing ideology.
Yeah, and it's something that is it's overloading the brain to take on these rapid changes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So because it has stepped up,
Yeah,
and
that's what this
to
does.
take it in, and your still body and mentality is back a decade, and adjusting to seeing this all around you and accelerating, right? It's like, what's going on? What happened to the planet overnight?
Yeah, people,
That's how it
people have no
feels.
idea what to even focus on because they're given so many crises, right? There's so many perceived crises. Every time it rains, climate change is coming to get you, right? Every time, somebody gets pregnant, oh my goodness, the population bomb is coming for you, right? I mean, there's a constant onslaught of these weird fake threats. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, like you said, with the mental aspect, the veganism, it perpetuates more fear, more paranoia, more irrationality. And then it ties in with the blood sugar swings. And then, of course, the gut's being damaged like crazy. So the hormones are all out of whack. The brain starts shrinking. I think I've had some vegans actually say to me that was the kicker for them when they realized and heard the information from neurologists and that the brain is actually shrinking in size,
But
right?
that's it's like tiny homes. It's good. It's sustainable. We need little, small, shrunken, shriveled people walking around to just perform tasks on computers and program machines. This is sustainability. You can't be 6 foot tall and jacked. That's wasting resources. I'm kidding. I'm
Yeah,
kidding. But it's
well, that's it. Yeah, and all these synthetic bees and all these things, they're just a waste of time. And that's the other thing with the experience, working in this industry, in the health industry, I used to talk to reps and some of the stuff that's in these things, people wouldn't believe it, petroleum-based powders and creatines and all these things. And that's the funny part about it. They'll take all that. I mean, I used to work with some bodybuilders 20 years ago who all had problems with their small intestinal infections because a lot of all these protein whey powders set like concrete, in the gut. And they were all falling apart, around 50. Their joints were all going on them. But of
they
course,
were
we're seeing
also
this more
eating
and more.
way too much. Like they were beyond their genetic potential, even as a human being, right? So they, push their body to such a extent. Because I guess
Yeah,
vegans would say, well, the reason they're dying is because they're eating all that meat. It's because they eat too much meat. But yeah, I think that's a funny population to look at as an example, right? Because it's so. Well, what else are they doing? They got insulin that they're taking. They're chronic ingestion of, they're taking exogenous hormones like insulin, testosterone, baby
yeah,
growth hormone.
yeah, of course, of course. But you've just got the average person in the street who's doing more of this, body sculpting gym or
Yeah.
whatever, and they're also taking the supplements too, not necessarily competing, but
Mm-hmm.
people are just have this artillery of supplements. I mean, the great thing is I don't take anything now. I used to spend a fortune, like all of us did as vegans, and we were
Yeah.
so duped into it. And it's a money making machine. You're vegan, and then look at all the products that have come out of being raw vegan. Just like cracking.
Yeah.
It's It's phenomenal,
It's a
and
big industry. People don't understand that. Whereas it's funny because a lot of these
massive.
vegans, they'll talk about a meat industry, but what the hell are you talking? What meat industry? The meat industry is owned by the grain industry now. The meat industry doesn't exist. What what we should be feeding ourselves with, in my opinion, is local animal husbandry, local animal agriculture. We should have our own chickens, our own goats, our own animals, and we should be living in rural. If we want to consume these foods, we would probably be best off living in more rural areas and being at least slightly connected to raising our own food.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and that's a great thing. When I grew up, a lot of in Australia, a lot of us had what we called the quarter acre block, and we had backyards, and we had, fruit trees, or the neighbour would have had chickens, and they'd share their eggs, and so we kind of that was still going on. But again, part of the urbanisation, you funneling all these families into little boxes, and their kids are just a lot of them don't even get their feet on the ground
You know,
anymore.
the
They're
families are done.
not.
The families are broken. Kids from rural
So
areas want to move to cities so that they can chase the Orwellian dream, and their families are left with no one to pass knowledge on to, right? So instead of actually learning how to keep goats, cows, sheep, kids want to move to the city and learn how to masturbate on VR porn, right? I mean, it's really crazy. But I think what we're gonna see,
yeah.
it's gonna keep
Yep.
getting more and more ridiculous like this, and you see a pushback. Now, of course, it's not mainstream to actually acknowledge these issues, right? It's very, very taboo for most people, but people who are on the precipice, they're gonna start seeing this more and more, and they're gonna start actually making decisions to, you know, to to learn how to feed themselves, to at least support local animal husbandry and local agriculture
Well, I
rather
see
than.
that. I see that in more Facebook groups that are forming. Women going back to the land, or in people are just doing all this homesteading groups and all these kind of things to teach people how to do simple stuff. Because again, they're losing all those skills as well. Young people haven't got a clue, to even follow us, a recipe or something. It's just it
I
doesn't
didn't know
occur
how
to
to
let
make
alone
food at
let
all when I
alone
went to
fix something.
college. When I went to college, I had no
Eh?
idea. When I went to
Yeah,
college, I had no idea how to make food.
yeah, yeah,
And now you got
yeah. So
grandkids. What are your grandkids eating?
when I was going, I was feeding them heaps of fruit, and jumping around the trampoline with them.
Uh huh.
um, my daughter's good because she's married to a guy who's really been a big meat eater, not a big meat eater, but he knows the importance of meat. So they've had that, and now I've kind of it's hard for me. I have to apologise to him. I've been ramming all this stuff down, but she's starting to see that too, and she can see the difference in myself. And there has been some big differences and changes, and again, that's another reason why I won't go back to veganism. I don't want to be a shell of the person I was mentally and emotionally, and I just like I can see the difference in my facial structure. You know what? I'm doing less exercise. I have more skin tone. I have more, and that's another thing people don't realize. When you get to older, you can lose a good 60-70% of your musculature. It happens to a lot of people, and the hormones start to go and all that. Of course, it's not just the sad diet does happen to people too, obviously. But when you're a vegan, these things happen far more rapidly. It's like I say to people, your body's got a really intelligent hierarchy, and what happens with veganism is the longer you're on it, the body in its incredible intelligence will sacrifice. That's why you've got two kidneys, dual organs, and there is a system, and it's very organized. And if the body will sacrifice, like the skeletal, the musculature, well, that's not important. That can all go, And then there's the fat around the organs, that'll go. And then it'll get into the bones and things. And once your structure starts going, people don't realize they're going to have a really stuffed older age if they get there,
Yeah.
because once you lose your independence and your structure, you're really in a bad way, and that was starting to happen. I had a couple of injuries and falls, and it's not from because I was weak or whatever. It was just happened. There was, I won't go into the story, but
Because you were eating meat
most
again.
people
That's why it happened.
I was actually starting to get pain around the breaks and things I'd had, and then I thought, as soon as I started eating meat, it all disappeared. And I mean, a lot of us have got incredible stories of things disappearing once we start eating meat.
Yeah. And how
And
many anecdotes do you vegans need to see, right? They'll say, "Well, that's just an anecdote. I want to see a peer-reviewed scientific study that tells you that eating meat will get rid of those symptoms for me." I mean, it's over the top level of cognitive dissonance.
scientific study has nothing to do with my direct experience. It means nothing to me. It's been done on rats and things, and it's all how they draw their conclusions is so hilarious and funny. And really, when you go into it, and it's all there's a financial interest in everything, and it's all crap. But I don't even take any notice of that. The only thing I take notice of is my direct experience. That's the only thing that gives me the sense of reality in this world. Nothing else. That's how we're made. we get all of that through our own direct experiences. That tells us if something's working or something's not. It's not complicated. We're making it so complicated. That's what I mean. When you go to rural country areas, and they don't sit down there questioning why they're eating this, and they want to see a chart before they go and eat a certain food.
But they know what foods to eat, right? They know what foods to eat. They know what parts of the animals to use, right?
No one questions their choices if it's different to another person. I mean, look, there's no one size fits all anyway. And that's why, if you're watching these, what do I eat in a day, and I want to follow that exactly and all of that doesn't work for me. I mean, let's get real about this. I mean,
the what you eat in a day video that you're watching may have worked for that person one day on that day. Right. The next day, that might have not been ideal for them. So I mean, people have been making their whole life over.
Totally. The whole stages and cycles of life, people don't take this into consideration. Hence, pregnancy, childbirth, puberty. These are things you can't control and stop from being a human. And your body has growth periods. It needs certain nutrients. That's just the way it is. No other living thing in nature questions any of this. Just goes along with it all. And people will probably say to me, "Well, that's a stupid argument." But like when you go to even cultures, like I said, rural areas, people just live their life and go along with it. And if they feel to do something and need something, they do it. And like you said, you can have people from the same family, and what someone's eating might not suit their body. So it all comes back to connecting with your own wisdom, your own inner wisdom. That's how we've always operated as human beings. And that's how we've been programmed with the software. It already knows what to do. That's why people get these signals all the time. But we've been taught to override them and discount them, and the belief, the mind, the beliefs have been, like I said, they're like a prison, and they're the things that dictate. And they're learned from somebody else and someone else's opinion and someone else's rules. So this is why I say question everything and just notice how something feels for you and do it. And when you eat it, how does that feel with me? And for a lot of us, because part of the agenda is to get you so far removed from connecting with yourself, people go, "I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous."
Well, there's a problem with a lot of people, right? It's like I work with a lot of clients, and if I were to just say, "Oh, well, just do what feels good," they're going to be like, "Okay, I'm going to keep eating donuts every day. Like, my body tells me I need Krispy Kreme. My body tells me I need Ben and Jerry's ice cream." So we definitely should be moving towards intuitive
Well,
eating.
when you're getting properly nourished, you're not going to even have these kinds of things, right? Seriously. I mean, that. When we take out sugars and all this stuff, and your body's having fats and good animal foods, you don't have desire for these things.
But remember when you were vegan, you thought you craved mangoes and stuff, right? It's like, that's the thing, is we train ourselves to believe, like, oh, maybe I just need some more
one,
algae.
a dozen.
Maybe I need some more cacao for fat. Like, and it's we train ourselves to that. So I think you're absolutely right. I'm just giving a little context to it.
I like what you said about the cacao, because I had the same experience. I mean, I imported cacao into Australia. I was one of the first few people to bring it in. And, I used to eat it, and I like bitter stuff. It's just a taste. For a lot of people now, it's an alternative to coffees.
Yeah.
they'll have their chocolate in the morning, but kids are having cacao, raw
Right.
cacao, you know, they're
I
giving
mean,
it to them
I
to
like cacao.
stimulate.
It tastes great, but it's, I mean, you
I do, but
shouldn't
like
eat
for
it
you, are you
all
meant
day
to
every
cheat?
day, you know? I mean, this is not like your main source of fat, you know? I mean, we've got
Yeah, but I think I remember you saying that your desire had lessened for it since you've been eating more.
yeah.
You know, you've gone more towards sort of carnivory and sort of the keto, but you know, bringing in more of the
I eat a
fats,
ketogenic
less
diet that's
plants.
mostly
Because
animal
I found the
foods, yeah.
same thing happened to me. My desire for it has totally gone down big
Right.
time. So what's that telling you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So when I see a lot of vegans, raw vegans and stuff, they get really into cacao. I mean, when you look at it, it's got significant amount of magnesium in it, but also it's saturated fat. You know, it's like, we used to take almonds and
think of it
cacao.
like it's a stimulant, you know,
It's a
it whips
stimulant
up
as
your
well, but the
adrenals. It just adds to the adrenal, you know, to the
yeah,
overload of you just whipping your body continually, you know.
yeah.
So it's highly addictive.
I've got
There's
a
no
question
question
for you.
about
So
that.
speaking of you know, programming ourselves and listening to our bodies, listening to what's going on, when you were vegan, we were talking about this a little bit before we started. You mentioned this craving for eggs every once in a while, and you used to
Yeah,
every once in a while
yeah.
give into that craving for eggs. Can you just go ahead and talk about the internal struggle and you know, kind of what that was like in your experience?
It was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible, and thank God I'm free of it. And that's another discussion I brought up with the eating disorder part. Is you know it's not healthy to be obsessing about food. You might not have something like anorexia or bulimia, or people say anorexia, but if you're spending a lot of chunk of your day, um, you know, obsessing, not obsessing, but thinking about food all the time, you know, and you know that
Yeah.
once you've started eating more animal foods, it doesn't happen
Yeah,
anymore.
you have a
You're
meal,
free
you
of
forget
it.
about it, right?
You do. You can get on. It's like your creativity starts to really fire up, and you know, I mean, I used to be anywhere I'd go, travel, I'd have to make sure I had enough food, and it was all okay. I've got to get the flight. Am I going to be able to get this at the airport? Am I going to get that? Do I have to go? No, I've got to go and hunt down some fruit and vegetables. I've got to hunt down some vegan stuff, right? You know, it was just incredible, and I'd go shopping and come back with so much stuff. Um, when I think about it, yeah, no, life is a lot more easier, and I don't
Well,
have that mind battle that's going
the
on.
doctor that I critiqued yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, he talked about how when the first 10 years of his vegan diet, he would every once in a while crave meat or fish. And then he finally
Mm.
tried it and he said, nah, it's not doing anything for me. Um, you, in your situation, you kept craving eggs, and you mentioned that every once in a while you would have the eggs, right? Like you would actually give
Yeah,
in
well,
to
I've
the
got to tell
craving.
you though, when I first had meat, it was not like the first thing I noticed was, oh, I don't like the taste. I didn't like you know, I was used to having a different taste in my mouth. But you know what? Because of my health, something told me to just keep pushing, that it's going to change. And it did. You know, I could have given up the first couple of days and thought, oh, I don't like the taste, this meaty, fishy taste or whatever, you know, anymore. Or I don't like, you know. But the thing was, even though I was feeling good, right? But I kept going because I knew that my biology wanted it and needed it, and I can't fight against it, you know, because I can't deny the fact that I feel calmer, I feel more satiated, I feel happier in one sense. I don't have this anxiety that was starting to happen,
Mm.
this low level anxiety that just came out of nowhere, you know.
And you
So
have your teeth.
and I lost two molars, which I really am upset about in a sense. But you know,
Mm.
okay, you know, and I can see it's unnecessary. But I know most people who, it's like one guy reached out to me last week. He still wants to stay as a fruitarian. He loves the ideology of it. He had fantastic teeth as a kid. And now he's got 11 cavities, pinhead cavities that have just come out, as we said, out of nowhere. You know? And that's why he asked me. He said, Kathy, have you noticed that your teeth have got better since you've been eating animal foods? I said, yes.
Yeah.
They feel anchored in actually, I feel like I can chew into a piece of meat and not hesitate. You know what I
Mm.
mean? The teeth feel more anchored in my jaw.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great feeling. You know, the sensitivity, all that's disappeared. And
Mm-hmm.
all I'm saying is that these benefits I've had, some are so surprising to me, I would never have connected them to the fact that I was vegan. these things that I just thought were, oh, well, that's just normal, or it's just, well, I don't say normal, be happening as I go through life, or, stress or whatever. I'd find something to attribute it to. And then when it disappeared, I was like, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a discovery tool, but I do know that the mind battle is very real, very difficult, and that is often the biggest hurdle for people. The biggest hurdle.
Yeah, the
There's people
mental and
who know
emotional.
that they need to eat animal foods. Their doctors have told them they're so sick, they're struggling. They even find it difficult to handle it because the
Yeah.
mind keeps saying it's dirty, it's this, it's toxic.
Yeah, that's why they
And because
usually
I've
go
been
for eggs.
brainwashed,
They
been
usually go for
brainwashed.
eggs first, and then maybe after that they'll go for
Yeah,
fish.
X is good because, and then this is a good long-time friend of mine. He was my first boyfriend, actually. He went vegetarian in the early 70s when the Bridget Bardot seal thing seal hunt came to the attention and mainstream. But he said what he did, he couldn't face anything with a face. But eggs are good, and he's gradually desensitizing this programming, yeah, and that's all it is. It's you're just unlearning this programming. You're pulling it apart because it is a program. It's a program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of programming to turn us off to the foods that that our body actually functions the best with. And think about how hard it must be to program a human's biology to reject that. I mean, uh,
Oh
these
yeah.
these fat soluble vitamins. I mean, we're lacking. When you look at like Weston Price's book, and he would reverse dental caries in kids and stop the progression of autistic type behaviors in kids by just giving them butter and cod liver oil once a day, or meat soup once a day consistently. It's shocking. These weren't even vegan kids. These are just kids, eating the industrial diet. Which the vegan diet, it's the fruit of the industrial revolution, right? It's the continuing of herding people into the big cities and the big industrial sectors, disconnecting them from where food actually comes from, and programming them to live off of kibble, essentially.
Well, this is it. I mean, if we can help get to these younger kids, the 9, 10-year-olds that start to go to vegan, and really they're on a path to some irreversible stuff because that it's going to affect their hormones, and that's the whole thing. Their sexual hormones, and will develop late, or again, the link transgenderism with it.
Right,
They're
there's a
going to
lot of
have a
gender
lot more
dysmorphia in the
problems.
vegan movement as well. That's not something we've even talked about. I mean, you've been around it for a long time. I
No,
wanted to ask you
no,
that. What I've
totally.
seen is there's quite a bit of gender dysmorphia. I mean, I call
Yes.
veganism, sometimes I call it species dysmorphia.
Yeah.
But have you noticed that the kind of
Absolutely. Yeah.
gender
Totally. Yeah.
bending effects?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the guys, the higher pitched voices, the very, I don't know, they're just more feminized, obviously, and I see a lot more of that. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
what
guess
can you
what else
say?
is there to say about it? It's kind of right in front of all of our
It's all
faces.
tied in. It's
The
right in front of it. The only
stereotypes, right? We have stereotypes for a reason. Yeah, I mean, let's see. So, I mean, 20 years. And during that period, how often did you cheat and have some eggs?
at least every 12 months. Sometime, and towards the end, it was about every 7, 8. Towards the end was the last 2 to 3 years, and then that was it. I just started to have fish, and last year, and then I got well, fish is you've got to have chicken. That was when I was salivating at the supermarket, and I couldn't continue being. I just couldn't do it as authentic, putting myself out as. A vegan. I mean, I had people say to me, "We're very disappointed in you," and all this sort of stuff, and you've let people down. I'm like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
But
You should just lie to us. You
yeah,
should just keep lying,
and
and
it
that's
was hard, Tristan. It wasn't easy, because no one likes to be at the receiving end of a lot of really hurtful criticism and bear the brunt of that. And I
yeah.
mean, a lot of vegans are sensitive anyway to begin with because
You're
so
malnourished, yeah.
it makes it worse. So I have a lot of compassion for that. But like you, I've seen how people respond, and vegans, and it's just been horrific. And I didn't have a lot of it because I kind of don't. I have a different persona. I like to jump in and,
Yeah.
I probably put more onto the wisdom and the rejuvenation side. It wasn't the ethical side I got into it. But nonetheless, I just said, look, I just had to follow my instincts, and my body was telling me over and over and over, and to
Yeah.
the point where,
How
I got to
how
the
would
point
you
where,
how would you
mm,
feel when you did cheat and eat the eggs? Was it like emotionally,
well,
psychologically?
no, well, the funny part is, and this I also had a discussion about this the other day, was um, when you've got this mask on, it's not your true self in a sense, because you're portraying as, you want to stand behind this image in a way. I would have the ex, but I'd hop right back into it. I wouldn't even consider it. It would be
Yeah.
like, oh
Like it
well, there
didn't
you go.
happen. It's like you compartmentalize that part of your personality so you
Totally,
wouldn't even have to deal with it.
totally, yeah. And
Fascinating.
364 days of the year, well, 3 days of the year, I'm raw vegan. And so, what if I have 2 days? The mind uses all different things to
And
rationalize it.
when you
But
would
in
cheat
no
and
way
have
did I question that I was deficient. I
yeah.
just thought, why am I wanting? I'm wanting eggs, but I felt better, and back into it again. So, and from talking to other long-term vegans, this is what happened to them. Same thing.
Yeah.
They had these insatiable desires, like they were just so intense that just, they couldn't kind of try and distract themselves from it anymore. It just, they wouldn't go away. The voice in their head wouldn't go away and say, look, you got to have this, you got to eat this, because,
Yeah.
you know, um, so that's how it was. And so I've kind of, it's good. I've formed some friendships with some longer term vegans who've now gone on to animalism because, there's an understanding of it all. And there's regrets in some things. I just would, and at the same time, I could have done a lot of damage. There's some people have done irreversible spinal damage and bone, loss and things that are, you know, mental problems. Like they still
Yeah.
can't configure it,
It's funny you mentioned
so
bone loss, and that's something I've seen in the community here, right? Like where I live, there was a guy who was really into vegetarianism, veganism, and the logical extension after fruitarianism, vegetarianism, breatharianism, right? So these people, they do these workshops. I'm sure you've seen them around
oh
Australia. They do
yeah.
their breatharian initiations and stuff like that, where they basically show people how to full on starve themselves and tell themselves that their eating disorder is spiritual ascension. One of these
Divine
people,
enlightenment. That
yeah,
divine light. I mean, I've been to America a few times. I actually like America. I like the people there.
yeah,
But yeah, I've seen the breatharian thing, and the breatharians, they do eat. It's all there's so much fakeness and stuff behind it all. But this whole
the breatharian that I know personally, his knees have both given out because he has no cartilage left.
mm,
And
mm.
good thing he was being given some good advice from some people around him, and I think he started having collagen. He started taking a collagen supplement at least, but he refused. I think for a long time he was refusing to have meat, refusing to have any animal foods at all.
Well, this is the hook. This other thing, when you start to dissect this reality, the reality you've got yourself involved isn't reality. I think it's an ideology,
Mm,
and you see that there's so many aspects of spirituality that also just like flimsy little houses that you can
yeah.
just pull apart too, and you can see it all leads to this promise of enlightenment, and or you're a better person, you're going to do this, is going to happen, and
You'll
none
live
of that
forever,
happens.
whatever. You're never gonna
This whole
die.
ascension stuff even is just like, I don't want to, you can see that this has been going on for centuries in history when you look at it,
Yeah.
someone comes forth with something that's going to save groups of people, so it doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's
But
constant cult
it's a big
creation.
hook. Yeah, it's a
Constant
big
cult
hook.
creation. Now, how many people do you think these long-term vegans, from your experience, of course, anecdotal, I know there's no scientific studies for all you people in the chat, how many of these vegans do you think are actually cheating regularly, having some eggs, having some fish, compartmentalizing it like you used to
From
do,
my
and pretending like
experience,
it's all
quite a
good?
lot. quite a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Eh,
I was dumbfounded. I want to talk about Hippocrates, but I was pretty dumbfounded when but since then, and so the story I told earlier about the retreat convention I was at, and there was some raw leaders there, and I revealed that I wasn't vegan, and it gave them permission to, because I was in a space that was seem safe for them to do so. When
hmm.
you're faced with antagonism, possible antagonism, and
Rejection.
rejection, that
Yeah.
you're more likely not to keep it a secret. I mean, that's part of an eating disorder too. Secrecy goes along with all that.
Yeah.
But I'm really finding that there is quite a big eating disorder connection there, orthorexic thing. The more I go into, the more there's so many. I'm disillusioned with some of these structures, because, like I said, it's not, when you travel and go to other countries and see these places where people just live their day-to-day lives, and they're they're happy, and they're living good, healthy, strong lives, and this whole we're so far, we've made everything so so crazy and complex, and
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
we
that's
need a
kind
hundred different experts to market
of,
us. We need a hundred different
yeah,
experts to market us solutions to our simple problems that could
exactly.
easily be corrected through just having proper nutrition.
Well, I'm sure for you to have this show, you've gone through. I mean, has that been the same for you? It's like a rabbit hole you've gone down, and you've started to see through other these, uh, what would you call them? I don't know, groups, spirituality especially, and
Yeah.
religion, and all the other connections, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been interested in why people do what they do, right? So, I mean, the way that worldview, the way that your beliefs, the way that your upbringing influences how you experience things, that's always something that's fascinated me. So, I always wanted to know why people do the things they do, and I've just kind of studied that since I was a kid. So I mean, this it's fascinating to me, but it's a microcosm of the greater cultural zeitgeist that we see going on, which we mentioned a lot. I mean, the move into cities, the transhumanist movement, all this stuff. I mean, I see a lot of connections between these things, and it's yeah, the more I look at this, and as I do this show, people are always sending me links whenever new news articles comes out and stuff. So I mean, it's just so funny to me to see Jay-Z and Beyonce promoting vegan diets and saying they'll give you free concert tickets to their vegan concerts, and it's I mean, to me that's
Do you think the censorship, though, with more of us that speak out, is that they're going to clamp down on it more? Do you think?
I don't know. No, I
I mean,
mean, it's there's good. Yeah, we're gonna see more censorship being pushed, and also, I mean, who knows? Who knows how long we'll even be able to do streams like this? I just try and focus on what I
yeah,
can do
yeah,
now, and try not to worry
yeah.
about self-censoring too much. And of course, I don't say anything stupid that'll get me kicked off. I don't break the terms of service, which are so vague. But yeah, it's something that we all think about. I used to get videos demonetized a lot, but now it's been better. So it seems like the algorithm is starting to accept me. Probably because I'm trans vegan. I identify as a vegan, but I eat a non-vegan diet. So by identifying as a vegan and eating a non-vegan diet, I protect myself in certain ways. So if you criticize me, it's hate speech, and if you deplatform me, it's like an international hate crime, I think. I'll have to check the Geneva Convention for that. But yeah, I don't know where this is all going. I think it's just important that we speak out, and having a woman like you who was in that movement for 20 years, who saw the degeneration, who saw the children suffering, who saw
Thank
people
you.
starving their babies on this. I think it's so important that you are out here speaking up, speaking about the truth, talking about what you've experienced and seen in the movement. So yeah, where can people find you, Katya, and where can they learn more
Raw
about your
Women's
experience?
Wisdom on Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, I'm actually getting some people together. I've got a few interviews that I'll be interviewing with women, and check out the one I've just done with the eating disorders. It's the connection there. It's fascinating. We do cover a lot of stuff that's some of it what we've touched on here, but we go into other areas. So, but it's great people are bringing up these topics. I'm seeing more channels. Now that people are feeling brave enough and have the courage to also be a little bit bolder with what they're saying. You finding that too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, every day.
Yeah,
Yesterday,
yeah,
John
that's good.
Venus
Yeah.
said, "I'm not vegan anymore." He didn't say he's not eating a vegan diet, but he said he's not identifying with the vegan movement. And I'm gonna make a video
Uh,
about that, talking about what I think's really going on
wow.
there. So yeah, I
Well,
mean,
that'll be great. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me on because it's great for you to also, I feel it's great to have a good spectrum of different experiences of people, and particularly long-term vegans, because whether these vegans who are in the honeymoon period now want to, believe that, that this is not how it's going to be for them or it's going to be different, at least we're able to say there's just so many common, it's too common. They're not just random things. It's too common for this huge amount of people to have the same problems that have occurred and to have them cease once they've started to bring in animal foods. I don't call them products because, products again is another polite, it infers that there's been manufactured. And these are foods, they've always been foods. And so thank you so much, Tristan, for doing what you're doing. And I'm always here to support that. And and other people who also feeling the call and feeling bold to come out and speak, because the more people who do this, the better that everyone's going to have a wider, broader range of experiences to look at and connect to themselves personally. When I say that, they'll see something in themselves from different people bringing in not only their direct experiences, but from their different stages of life and how long they've been in veganism. So thanks. I really think it's great.
all right, Katya. One more time.
And
What's your
keep doing it. Yeah. So
uh,
yes,
one more time? What's your YouTube channel called?
it's Raw Women's Wisdom.
Raw Women's Wisdom, and the
That's
women's
it.
are right on. All right, so Katya, check out Raw
Wisdom
Women's
from the
Wisdom.
raw women
There you go.
who were once raw, but also it's got the double meaning, of course. So thanks
Right.
again, Tristan, and I'll certainly keep watching more of these vegans who become ex-vegans and to hear their stories. So thank you.
Right on. All right. So thanks to
All
the
right,
audience out there.
and all
Thanks,
the great topics you talk about. It's fantastic. All right,
awesome. Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
on, and thanks to the
Okay, my
thanks to
pleasure.
the audience for hanging out with us. It's been nice. To all the
Yeah.
future ex-vegans who are watching, to the ones who were quite upset in the chat, trying to battle it out and defend your intellectual territory. Understand, we're not here to attack you. We're not here to deride you. We're here to give you information. We're here to accept you. We're here to tell you that it's okay. We know it's not working out. There are people who understand. There are people who've been through this as well. And it's better to admit sooner rather than later that this is destroying yourself, your health, your family's health, and your children's health. So, no, children are not meant to detox their teeth and their hair out, and neither are adults. So, see you guys next time.
Okay.